Um, okay, so let's get straight to the topic since we only have around like 30 minutes
Yeah.
this version that
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think the first one that we are going to talk about is taking control of your own language learning. And
Yes.
most people are studying alone. That's why they're here. So what are your guys' tips are on studying alone? Were you studying alone, Teddy?
Yes. All the time. Yeah, I feel that I study better by myself because I cannot follow the classroom method. Um, I think I can say that almost all of the classrooms they always start with alphabets and grammar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost never start with the alphabet. I just go straight to the conversation.
Mm.
Yeah, and I feel much better because I feel much better learning by myself because I can take control of my learning. If
Yeah,
today I want to
exactly.
learn about um, self-introduction, I can do that. And tomorrow I want to learn about numbers, I can do that. Nobody's controlling me. I think that's the benefit. The freedom is the benefit.
Yeah. So I have, when you mentioned that, there were so many things that really resonated with me. So I wanted to ask two follow-up questions. You mentioned that most classes they have a set order. They start with the grammar and then I'm not sure if you said they go into alphabets. Like
Yeah.
and that's as seasoned language learners. Like once you've learned like four or five or more languages, you realize that that's not necessarily the best way of doing things. It
Mm.
seems logical since all the classrooms do it, in school and high school. So you kind of get used to this is the order.
Yeah.
Um, and you mentioned when you self-study, you can take control. And I thought uh, two reasons popped up to me when you said that. That one might be that you can take control and make the learning order um, into an order that fits your personal needs, right? And
Yep.
the second one might be more universal, that there might be a way that's that actually works better for most people. Like even if you don't know who they are, I could say there's a better way, even without knowing the student, simply from experience. Would you agree
Right.
with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I agree with that. But the
Mm,
downside from that is that for non-experienced people, they can be so overwhelmed with the number of resources available right now. So
yeah.
at the end, they will be confused. They will not know where to start.
Yes.
Because if we talk about language app, you see there are hundreds of language apps, and
Yes.
all of them have pretty much similar categories of the materials, but they teach languages in different ways.
Mm. So this
Um,
is interesting. Oh, sorry.
yeah, sorry.
Keep
I
going.
just, yeah, I just want to add it a little more. I started by using apps, but after some time I become so tired using the gadget, so I switched back to book. So until
Yeah.
today, I still prefer reading books.
I remember when we first met in Taiwan, and I had just found an app that had been around for years at that
Yeah.
point, and at that point I had been self-learning Mandarin for some time, and I just out of curiosity I got the free version of the app simply to kind of test my like to see how far I could go in the app
Mhm.
without meeting any resistance, and it turned out I could pretty much just like go through all of the app. It didn't have anything really challenging for me. And you said to me, "Oh, you're still using that old app, you know?" And that's pretty telling. Like you had like, oh, been there, done that, and I got it. And it was supposed to take a couple of months, like the program they had. And simply just from talking to people on the street and reading text messages and reading books and text on my own, I went through the app in a matter of weeks. maybe 2
Right.
weeks, you know, because yeah. And I thought, oh, this is very easy, you know. Anyway, so without making this like too political, what you mentioned with there being so many apps and every app is of course marketing itself as being, you know, like this is simply the capitalism we live in, right? Like we have all of these actors, you know, I tend to feel that a more collaborative approach, like instead of saying, no, don't use that teacher, don't use that app, don't go to that school, you know, go, this is the best. Maybe just collaboration, like we're doing now. Like I know, I don't want to create like a tension between we're the good guys and you know, but yeah. It's simply a feeling that there might be a better, less competitive way and a more collaborative way forward. What do you think?
Depending on your needs. Depending on your needs, there are many ways,
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I also find the language groups very motivating. To meet like-minded people, they can be very, very motivating.
For sure.
Right. Especially if you're learning minority languages, these kind of people, they can share the materials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, yesterday, I just started a language meetup where I'm living now in Stockholm. And, you know, we thought that maybe 5 people would be interested, and almost overnight, 20 to 30 people signed up, and we had to assign them to waiting lists because the coffee shop was too small. And anyway, as you said, like the level of energy you get from like-minded people, simply meeting them and like switching between these languages is amazing. And since they have a passion for the topic, we started talking about native languages or minority languages, like you said. Here where I live, we have the Sami people and the Sami language, and they have been around for much longer than you know the Indo-Europeans. So one day I'd love to learn that, but you know it's not a huge language like Mandarin. It's not just there's a million apps teaching Sami. There's probably like no apps or one app, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So then you have it's all about the people. It's not about the gadget, as you said, about the latest hippest app or website. It's always about people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that both of you recommend like really go out and to talk with people. So are there any tips in like, you know, if you are studying by yourself now with school, now with a tutor, so when you go out to meet people, what kind of tips would you give to these language learners? Like what kind of question you should ask? And yeah.
That's a very good question. I would actually like to bounce that question over to Ted, because you mentioned a while back that you had started abandoning like all the modern, you know, cool hip gadgets and going back to say the roots, the books.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe that ties into a more fundamental human way of using language.
Right. You use more sense in your language learning. Especially if you take notes. You know, the power of taking notes is very big.
Yes.
Because the best way to learn something is by using it or by teaching it. So when you're writing it down, your brain is catching what you're writing and you learn it
I mean, I'm taking notes right now, so.
Yeah. Right. And also there's feeling when you're holding the book and you're flipping the pages, skim over the book, there's feeling comparing with reading PDF, just swipe. So everything is the same.
I feel like I want to make a comment here because we're not necessarily talking about textbooks, right? Because a textbook, right? No. Because a textbook, in my experience, can be very artificial. Like someone has made a selection. You have to learn these words in this order. Chapter 1, we talk about food. Chapter 2, we talk about this. even as a beginner, I would just go and get a book that interested me. And now I would rate my Mandarin Chinese as upper intermediate. Like I know I can hold a conversation, but it might not sound like a, fully, I'm not using the um
Right.
full ability of the Mandarin, But I recently went and ordered online. I ordered Harry Potter in Mandarin, in traditional Mandarin, and also the Book of Changes, I Ching. So obviously I Ching is a very advanced book, and it's
Yeah.
probably way above my level. But the fact that I'm passionate about it and it's something that interests me will mean that I will still learn something from it simply from interacting with it. And that's like that's so far removed from simply getting a textbook that tells you, oh, this is little Timmy and his dog, and that's all fine. But for me, I want some more meat.
Yeah. Right. Well,
And
yeah,
actually, oh,
depending on their personality. I've heard people saying that they cannot learn well if there's no homework, or they cannot learn well if there's no teacher.
mm,
That's what.
I think you can hack that though. Like you can hack that. So instead
Yeah,
yeah. So
sure. But
instead
you
of
need to
like
be
if you are my
experienced.
teacher, yeah. So in instead of saying, Ted, can you be my teacher? Can you give me homework? I can simply decide Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I will read 5 pages or something, and that will have the same effect. So to get back to Jess's question about starting to talk, right? And how I took up books because for me, before talking, my sense is that I need a core vocabulary. Like even before, it makes no sense day one of learning Mandarin to just go and trying to talk to people because I don't have any vocabulary. I don't have any sense of the language.
Right.
And I know some people have this launch yourself from day one idea. And if they're super extroverted, that what they think is the most fun way, fine. I mean, that then it's a personal choice. But for most people, in my experience, I would say spend some time reading, to get some, I mean, simply get some words into your mind. So when after like a month, when you go out and try to order a coffee, you will have some passive knowledge already. And then when you
Right.
start talking, you're
Yeah.
not starting from square one. You have things that can rapidly be activated.
Yeah. Right. About learning Mandarin, I can share a little bit of my way, because when I just came to Taiwan, I couldn't speak Chinese at all. And
But you could speak,
learning Chinese I couldn't speak Chinese at all
yeah,
because it's foreign language. And
yes.
if you learn Mandarin from book and then you speak the way the book teach you, you sound like a robot.
Oh
So
yeah.
what I did was, given the situation that I will be, like for example, I want to ask a way, so I visualize it in my mind, and then I will stop somebody, and then what's the first sentence I will say? I write it down first. I check the Mandarin sentence for that, and then I learn it. So I learn based on the situation.
For sure. Um, that is so true what you mentioned that if like maybe especially Mandarin, if you're learning from a book and you talk like that, the book will be overly complicated. And this is
Right.
something that's, different languages have different ideas, different language and cultural ideas of what is good speech. Like I've heard from people who speak Arabic that in the Arabic culture, they hold in high regard, the flowery, poetic way of saying things. Like even in normal conversation, if you direct translate from Arabic, we would think, oh, that's very like that's overly
Mm-hmm.
polite and flowery. Whereas in Chinese, it's the opposite.
Right.
If you try to say, like I remember like my first month in Taiwan, I asked my friend, how do you say in a restaurant, I would like to have one of those over there, please. And she said, no, you say nigga, nigga, nigga. Like
Yeah.
you don't make use of that long, complicated phrase. That would be polite in English. Hi, how are you? I would like you to
Right.
say, hi, ni hao. Like I want that one, that one, that one. And that's
Yeah.
simply
Right.
the way the language works, right? But
Right.
that's not if you learn from a book, it's not going to be like that.
Yes. Yeah. That's yeah. So Yeah, it's quite funny. I don't know, my Mandarin, I learned much of the Mandarin from the street. So when people hear me speaking Mandarin, they will think that I might be quote unquote Mandarin native speaker that grew up in a non Mandarin speaking society like that. But actually not. I learned Mandarin from scratch. But because I learned it from the street, so I pick up the locals' accent, the locals' way of saying things. And when I look at the textbook, I realize that what I know and what the textbook teaches are very different. I'm not used to with the textbook's way.
Because I know you personally, I have two comments on that. And the first is, especially since we talked before about there's so many resources online now for Mandarin, especially since it's a world language, but 90% of that or more is going to be Chinese, the Chinese way of speaking. So the very limited experience I have of trying to learn something from a Mandarin website or Mandarin app, and then I say that to my Taiwanese friends, and they will say, "Oh, I understand what you mean, but no one says that."
Strange.
It sounds strange. Like no, like maybe people in China would say that, or like that sounds so. Yeah, it works in a way, but people will still comment on it.
Right.
So it's kind of a waste of time.
Right. There are also Mandarin learners that learn the Beijing accent. They speak the sound. Well, they kind of imitate the Beijing accent, but actually not everybody in China speaks like that.
No, China's a huge country, you know, and
it's a huge country. There are lots of accents.
Yeah, because you live in Taiwan and I lived in Taiwan for a couple of years. Like that's simply the accent that I don't even reflect. Like this is the accent.
Right.
It's simply the way that people that the Mandarin speakers I know that's the way they speak. And then I only notice when I meet someone from China and I say something and they say, what was that? And I repeat and they're like, I don't understand. And we look it up and like, oh, that's actually Hokkien, or, you know, oh, that's actually a local thing. And I had no idea because I just learned it from people, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, talking about accents in Taiwan, there's also the Aborigines accent.
Yeah.
When you speak Mandarin, so it's really different. It's not just about one accent. Yeah.
And also a follow-up question. You said that you learned Mandarin from scratch, but you were a native speaker of, was it Cantonese or Hokkien?
Hokkien.
So you're a native speaker of Hokkien. So that also, in a way, that makes us different, because I also learned Mandarin from scratch, but without knowing any Asian languages at all. Do you think that makes a difference?
Hokkien certainly helps me to learn how to speak Mandarin. Yeah, it helps me with the accent. Yeah. Well, I think I'm kind of lucky to know two languages from different language families. Indonesian is from Austronesian group, and then Hokkien is from the Sino-Tibetan group. So whenever I learn Austronesian language, I can refer to Indonesian. I learn the Chinese regional language, I refer to Hokkien. Even Korean and Japanese, they also share lots of similarities.
I have the same feeling that even though my languages that I have in my personal background, say, are both Indo-European, since I've learned now upper intermediate level of Chinese, and I also have at least a advanced beginner in Hebrew, you know, and those are two. So that would be like the Afro-Asiatic and Sino-Tibetan, and oh, someone is saying they can't hear anything. Hang on.
Oh, maybe it needs to check the setting. Audio.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, sometimes the audio can be muted.
Right.
So I know the Zoom has like an unmute audio, like not your own microphone, but unmuting with other people. It might be that.
Yeah, I can take over.
How it goes.
I can continue.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So simply having educated myself to some degree in three very different language families. So now when I look at Japanese, or now when I look at something else, I can, as you said, I can refer to that, and that helps a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if it's okay with you, let's move on to, we had thought to talk about learning together with others, and we already touched upon that topic.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that maybe in the beginning, it's okay to just get a book and start learning to build a vocabulary, and then you go out on the street, you go buy a coffee, you go to get street food, you get some friends, you talk with them rather than having a textbook and a very strict. But after that, like we already mentioned language meetup and exchanges. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I organize language meetups. And my vision for that is to make and to create an environment where people can feel the atmosphere of speaking foreign language. Pretty much like what they are doing in New Zealand. It's like what they are doing in New Zealand with the Maori language. They create in the school, they create the environment of Maori language. So for anybody that wants to do the same, probably can start with like make it more foreign language, less native or common language, and then gradually will be changed until eventually it become 100% foreign language.
Yeah, so let's take a practical example. Let's say that you're in Taiwan now. Let's say that you wanted to learn say Finnish.
Yeah.
I assume you don't speak Finnish already. Then how
No.
would you?
Well, Finnish is okay. It's very difficult to do because I have two meetups. One is for English, another one is for Southeast Asian languages. It's easier, much easier to make a 100% English only meetup. Because everyone is familiar with English, although the English is not so good, but at least they can talk, just they need more time to accustom themselves with speaking English. Yeah, for the other languages, it's really difficult, especially if the level is still low.
I feel like this ties into something that has to do with meetups, but also just with talking with people on the street. Like, as I said, in the beginning in Taiwan, because young people in Taiwan usually has very good English, right? Like, of course, not every single individual, but as a rule, people have, like, they speak good English. So when I would try to, okay, we have 7 minutes left. So when I would try to speak Mandarin to them, they would just switch to English. So at some point I would have to say to them, like, no, I'm gonna keep speaking Mandarin. Either they could switch and I would just ignore that and keep speaking Mandarin, or I would simply say in Chinese, I'm sorry, I don't speak English. It's either Chinese or Spanish, assuming they don't speak Spanish, and then,
Right. But I think that has something to do with the look, because nobody will speak English with me. Although my Chinese is bad, they will keep on speaking Chinese.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna ask a question to Jess. Is Zoom gonna kick us out in 5 minutes?
I believe so, 5 to 7 minutes, because we have a 40 minutes cap.
Okay. Do we wanna reconnect for like a 10 or 15 minute additional afterwards?
I think we're good.
Yes. We're good. Okay. Then let's wrap up. Yeah, okay.
I think we can all come back to the topic of this talk is how to control your own language, like learning. Like in general, how would you reply on this question if someone asks you?
Yeah. So what we're talking about, like when then you make a meetup, and as Ted mentioned, it might be difficult to make a meetup and make sure that people actually speak the languages you plan, because they will just default to English, or when you talk to people in the street, they will just switch to English. So that's why you have to take control over it and politely say, hey, let's speak Finnish, let's speak Mandarin. At least that's my strategy, to simply And when I'm the event organizer, like yesterday in Stockholm, I walked around the table and made sure when I heard people like, wait, you're speaking English now. We said we're gonna speak Swedish, you know? And then we have Mandarin time. Like, what do you do? And we're like, oh, I'm too bad. I'm like, no, like find a way to have at least easy communication. Otherwise, there's no point, you know?
Yeah. There's one very good thing in the Esperanto community, any language community. Every time, because everybody learns Esperanto is foreign language, so nobody's perfect in Esperanto. Even
Oh yeah.
I cannot say that for the native speakers, but usually Esperanto speakers, they always speak slowly, and they're always trying to help the non-experienced Esperantists with speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they deliberately slow down the speech. They're not like when speaking English with native speakers, the native speaker will speak like blah, 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 and then you're lost.
And then how would you do if people simply switch to, I don't know, like
Well, in Esperanto community, you are allowed to check dictionary. So
You're
like
allowed?
yeah, we are for example, we are having a community meetup right now, Esperanto meetup, and then you forgot something. You can take your time to check dictionary, or if I know, I will help you. I'll try to guess what you want to say. That's how we have the communication.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it might be a bit language dependent too, but at least there's hope. Right. There are a lot of people, especially nowadays on the internet. I live in an international city, you do too. Even if you don't, there are online communities you can find. And just to wrap it up then, learning a language is not something you can do in, like some people would have you think that you can do it in 3 weeks if you just buy their book or something like that. But in truth, you will have to commit for a year or two. And so my final question would be, some days energies might just be low. Like you might be passionate about languages for sure, but some days you might just be like, oh, I don't feel, I'm just gonna whatever. How do you keep your spirit up when energies are low?
When I learn a language, I don't just learn the language. I also learn about the culture.
I see.
The other stuff like the art, the music, lifestyle, the history of the speakers, of the people. So these kind of things that keep me motivated to learn language.
Amazing. Okay. Jess, what do you say? Is the time up?
Yes, I think that's it for today. And for those of you who joined midway or didn't hear it, I will post the meeting recordings on the Lingspark page on Facebook. So we will see you there and stick with us. We have live talk every Sunday, and message us if you have any questions. And I hope you all enjoy the meeting today. Thank you, Teddy. Thank you, Saul, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.